Alright guys, welcome back. Today, I'm going to be kind of going over my thoughts about the whole pistol brace ban. And actually a couple of these cases that are currently, that the ATF has put forth that are going through the Supreme Court about some of their other arbitrary rule changes that they've done that essentially made previously legal items now illegal. Or, for that matter, regulatable. So, the way they currently have it now, this is a carbine length, you know, barrel on this. So currently, how they have it now with the new rules they've released is if you have under 16-inch barrel and you have a brace on here, which I don't have any, pistols, but if you have a brace on here, it's now a short-barreled rifle because you could, in theory, shoulder it. And part of their considerations that they're going off is how it's advertised and how the community has used it, which, pretty much they're saying if they can find pictures of somebody shouldering a brace, then it's considered now a short-barreled rifle. Now, the problem with that is, another part that they had with that is that they're saying that anything with enough surface area in the back can constitute a stock. Well, here's the problem. They didn't really specify how much surface area it is. So, that's not that much there. If you got a jacket on and you're shooting 5.56 or a pistol caliber, that's not a whole lot of recoil. That's manageable. Another thing that they mentioned is that it has the actual notches to actually put an adjustable stock on. Well, that means most regular buffer tubes automatically are going to be considered, stocks to them no matter what. And because they didn't specify how much surface area there needs to be, they can pretty much go off of whatever they feel like saying at the time. Because a buffer tube, that is shoulderable. You could put a tennis ball on here, and that's shoulderable. One of the things I was thinking about that might be a workaround that some of these companies can do is make literally a pad that goes on, that you strap to your shoulder, that you hook a buffer tube into, and then that spreads it, but that's not a attachment to the rifle itself. It's just something on your shoulder. Now, this whole pistol brace rule is bullshit to begin with. We all know that. We know it's unconstitutional. But there's a silver lining. And that is the fact that I don't believe that it's going to stay around for too long. We know it's unconstitutional, but we have to convince the ATF that it's not constitutional. And the good thing is, we've actually have some good headway. So, there's a handful of Supreme Court cases that we need to pay attention to. A couple that we've won, and a couple that are still going through the paces right now. So the first one that we need to pay attention to that is important, that can help us with this, is Bruin. And that's the one against the New York Pistol Association versus New York against their concealed carry permit schemes. So we won that, but the good thing is Judge Clarence Thomas, when he declared that their law was unconstitutional, he went a step further, and he made a new precedent that when determining Second Amendment cases, they must be looked at objectively through history. So basically what it means is, if it is your law equivalent or similar to a law or regulation that existed at the founding. So we're talking 1890s or so. 1790s or so. Now, here's the problem, and this is what really hurts Democrats and a lot of the blue state lawmakers, is the only gun regulation that existed at the founding in the 1790s was specifically to keep African Americans, blacks, from buying guns and owning guns. So they can't use anything from that era to support their legislation. The other part of that is, where was I going with that? But the other part of that is, they can't use that to say, yes, this law I got now exists now. And that's the great thing. So first of all, whenever these Supreme Courts take up these cases, now they have to look at that and compare these laws and bills and regulations that are being passed to stuff at the founding, which we know there's not hardly anything that's equivalent to what we're dealing with now. So that's the great thing with that one. That one helps us a lot. Now another one, and this is one that not a lot of people or know of, especially in the gun community, because that has nothing to do with guns. But it's a perfect case that puts a huge hole in the ATF's ability to arbitrarily make these rules and change the definition of things to now ban them and make them illegal or make you have to register them. And that's EPA versus Virginia. Now, the EPA lost this case, and this case essentially boiled down to saying letter agencies, EPA, IRS, ATF, etc., DOJ, they can't arbitrarily create rules that are treated as laws that can cause criminal action to someone without the approval of Congress, which is how it's supposed to be. None of these agencies are supposed to create anything that can be treated as a law without Congress. And of course, we all know that's what they've been doing. So the EPA actually lost that case, which is awesome because that's the strongest case that we have against the ATF's creation of these rules because, well, without that rule, without that ability to create rules without Congress, they don't have anything. They have to go through Congress, and we know stuff's next to impossible getting passed through Congress unless it's attached to some other big bill that makes people feel good. So that's two cases. The next one we have to look at is the bump stock case that just got resolved. So essentially, it got found that bump stocks are not machine guns and cannot be just arbitrarily declared as such by changing of definition. And that's another hit to the ATF in this type of regulation because they did the exact same thing with bump stocks that they just did with pistol braces and that they're trying to do with receivers. They changed the definition of what it says in the NFA and in the Gun Control Act to make the regulation. So now that those three cases are resolved, that's a huge hit to the ATF. Now, there's one more case that we should, actually there's two more cases, but there's one more case that we really need to pay attention to, and that's a Texas case that's going through the Supreme Court over frames and receivers. And this involves 80% arms, and a handful of other companies that produce 80% lower kits. Basically, on that case, the ATF has been losing every single leg of the race. Every time one of these new companies come in and they want to join the lawsuit, the judge has been allowing them to join as a plaintiff. And then, as of now, I think all but the most current one have all been granted preliminary injunctions. Now, preliminary injunction pretty much says the ATF cannot enforce their rule against frames and receivers against these companies and their customers while the case is pending and going through the paces. So the ATF has gone through and tried to appeal these preliminary injunctions all along, every time one of these new companies joins in, and guess what? They've lost every single time. The judge, in his opening statement on this case, said on its face, what the ATF has done is unconstitutional and they can't arbitrarily change rules to change definitions to make stuff either regulated or banned. So that's another case that if that one gets won, that's two cases directly dealing with firearms, accessories, or firearms that were used for that exact same just change of definition to ban. So if we win that one too, it's not looking good. So with that said, I don't think this is going to last very long as far as these braces. Especially seeing how it's the only thing that's changed over the past couple years is Biden asked the ATF to look into banning pistol braces and pretty much defining pistols as SBRs. Now, a Republican just also put forth a bill that would deregulate the ATF majorly and remove a lot of their powers. I don't have a lot of faith that that one's going to actually do anything. The voting powers are just not there. But however, the Supreme Court cases, we're winning those. So it's great. And there's even more of them out there that I can't think of off the top of my head that are useful in these situations. So we're making a lot of headway on the Second Amendment front as far as winning these cases against the ATF and getting our rights back and telling them, hey, look, you can't do this regulation without going through Congress. Now, it all takes time. So, some of these cases, they may take, a year or two to get through and resolved. Now, the 80% arms ones, that one's actually moving fairly fast. There's usually an update to that every couple weeks. And there's also a Texas suppressor case as well that's going through the paces and is looking kind of promising as well. I'm personally excited about that because I would love to be able to make my own suppressors or buy Texas-made suppressors without having to register them. Now, here's the thing. The ATF has said that once they drop the rule and it's official on the books, you have 120 days to comply, and you can either destroy your weapon, put a 16-inch barrel on it, convert it to a rifle. You can turn it into them. I don't know why anyone would do that. That's stupid. Or you can register it with the ATF, and they're waiving the tax stamp for this one little time. They're being so gracious by giving us that for free. But we also know that taxing a right isn't exactly something that is allowed, as the poll tax case, that got completely demolished. You can't tax a right. So it's looking promising for us. We got a lot of victories. But here's what you should maybe think about doing. So, first of all, so many organizations have already said they're going to put forth lawsuits against the ATF on this pistol brace rule. The GOA, NRA, and I think FPC all said it, plus there's private parties. So there's going to be probably a few, I'm going to say a high end of 10 cases going and suing the ATF over this rule. Now, this amnesty period that they're talking about, 120 days. Here's what I would do. Don't do anything until there's about 20 days left. Because here's what's going to happen. A lot of these, most of the people who have these firearms, they're going to wait and see what happens with these lawsuits. Now, none of these lawsuits are going to be finished up in 120 days. No way it's going to happen. We'll probably at least 9 months out before this gets resolved. So, here's the thing. I'm not saying destroy your gun or anything like that. I'm not even saying, for safe measure, you can take it off your rifle, off your gun. But don't do anything. Do not fall for this registration. Because essentially, once you register it, you're registering the gun and it's now on a list. They know you have this. You have to do all the paperwork and stuff like that. But the big problem that's going to happen is about 20 days before the time's up, and a lot of people realize, oh, hey, yeah, none of these cases are going to resolve in time before we can, have to register things. And a bunch of people are going to register at one time, and it's going to crash the ATF system. It's going to happen. Because they estimate there's anywhere between 3 to 40 million pistol braces in circulation in the United States. Now, that's not saying that there's 3 to 40 million Americans that are going to be made criminals if they don't register these things. Many people have multiple pistol braces on multiple guns. That's not the problem. The problem is when everyone realizes that this stuff's not going to be done in the courts fast enough, they're all going to try to do the registration at the same time, and it's going to crash their system. I submit a different solution. Just take your upper off for the time being. Take your pistol brace off. Throw a 16-inch upper on it. Keep your pistol brace off to the side. Lock it up in a separate safe. Hide it under your bed. Whatever. Don't destroy it. None of that stuff. Don't turn it in. None of that. Just kind of throw it off to the side. Keep it off the side. You can keep your pistol, as a pistol if you follow their little rules now. But the problem is, though, they're so arbitrary. It's almost impossible to guarantee that the way that you have it set up is going to not be SBR, because they even count having an optic on it as being FBR. They say if you have an optic that requires the eye relief to be shouldered, then you've got it counts as a SBR now. So you could try to follow their little regulations the best that you can if you want to keep your pistol, but I would recommend throw an 16-inch upper on it, make it a rifle for the time being, keep your pistol off to the side, don't do anything with it, and wait and see what happens. Because I guarantee you right now, there's a lot of people that have bump stocks that have just kind of had those off in the safe or hidden away, waited for these cases to resolve. And guess what? Now, in theory, they can still do it. Now, if you want to keep your rifle or keep your pistol completely set up as is, I'd recommend just don't take it in public. Just disassemble it while traveling. I mean, what they don't know isn't going to hurt them. But keep in mind that the ATF doesn't care whether or not you know or think that something they've done is unconstitutional. They will arrest you. They will charge you. It will cost you a lot of time and money to fight it, and you're probably going to go to jail. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying the ATF is going to still throw you under the bus no matter what if they get the chance. Now, they said they're not going to throw any extra manpower or resources into enforcing this, which doesn't make much sense, because in that case, what's the point of even doing it to begin with if you're not going to try and enforce it? But my suspicion is they're still going to enforce it. They're going to find somebody and, make an example of them. So just play it on the safe side. Wait, It sucks, but waiting's all we can really do on this. There's a lot of horror stories out there of people that simply, they just got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've heard stories of people, sitting there. I listened to one a while back where a guy got arrested and charged by the ATF because he just happened to be at a gun shop at the time. And the gun shop owner got raided by the ATF. And they thought that this guy, who happened to have some tax-stamped SBRs and suppressors in the back of his truck, U.S. citizen, a veteran, stuff like that, and he got arrested, and they confiscated all of his stuff, and some of it he never got back. He's still fighting to get it back. So the ATF's going to do what they want, and there's not a lot that you personally can do about it. So the thing I can recommend is just play it safe. Don't do the registry. Don't let them know you have it. And, try not to get caught with it while we wait for all these cases to go through, and hopefully the, Supreme Court does what's right and they defeat, the ATF. That's all we can hope for and do at the moment. It sucks, but that's the way society is now. We can't do it the old-fashioned way. We can't water the tree of liberty with blood like we used to be able to. One day we might have to, but we're still a long ways away from that. So that's my thoughts on the pistol brace rule. Just play it safe for right now and just kind of keep your ear to the wind. You can check out Washington Gun Law, their YouTube channel. He's staying on top of all these cases and stuff like that. Every time they release something new, he's breaking it down and making a video. And you can also take a look at Armed Scholar. He's the one who's keeping an eye on a lot of these Supreme Court cases and updating the 2A community every single time there's a new development in these cases. So go check out their YouTube channel, subscribe if you really want to keep an eye on this stuff. And all we can do is wait and hope we can stick it to the man and tell the ATF to fuck off. And anyways, y'all guys have a good one. Keep shooting and support the Second Amendment. Y'all have a good one.